I often wonder why I have no money and then I keep doing shit like this. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am taking you through all of the books that I have bought throughout February, March and April of this year. I did a massive book haul back in January using all of the money that I had saved up with every book that I'd read last year. And I said after that, I'm going to pause this for a little bit. I'm going to take my foot off the pedal and I'm just going to read my stack. That did not go very well. That did not go according to plan at all. I haven't really gone too overboard here, but I have got a good couple of books that I'd like to introduce. First up is the most recent addition to the pile, and one that I have actually read as an ARC, so it doesn't technically go onto my TBR. This is Happy Place by Emily Henry. It is her most recent book. It came out in the middle of April, and it's actually genuinely such a great read. This follows Harriet and Wyn, who have been in a relationship for about 6 or 7 years. They are engaged, but they've actually just broken up about 6 months ago. The problem is that they haven't told their friends yet, they haven't told their family yet, they haven't kind of figured out how to break the news to them. But all of their friend group is gathering at one of their friends' parents' cabin for the last time before their parents sell it. Then there is this whole kind of idea of how are we going to break this to our friends when everything is so charged anyway, emotions are high, everyone is a bit sad for having to say goodbye to the cabin. So they decide to fake date. They decide to just keep pretending that they are still together. And of course, maybe they start to remember why they were together in the first place. I've heard a couple of people say that Emily Henry can be a little bit mismarketed, that some of her books don't feel like a romance, they feel a little bit more like a contemporary fiction, like a women's fiction, like a chick lit, but I would genuinely say this one has got a bit more of a romantic vibe to it than Book Lovers did. This one definitely feels more so that you're following Harriet and Wyn's relationship, but also you are following the friendship between Harriet and her two friends Sabrina and Cleo, and Wyn and all of their partners as well. It's such a great book and I genuinely really enjoyed it. I think Emily Henry just goes from strength to strength for me. Next up is The Backup Man by Phoebe Luckhurst. I read Phoebe's first book, The Lock-In, when it was out as an ARC and I absolutely loved it. I think she is such a great writer. She has such a great humour style to her writing. So when I heard that this was coming out and when I saw it on my shelves, I knew that I had to pick it up. In this book, we are following Anya, who is 29, she's jobless, she's single, and she remembers a pact that she and her best friend Ewan made when they were about 18 or 19, that if they had gotten to 30 and they hadn't been married yet, they would end up marrying each other. The problem with this is, Ewan hasn't been seen for about a decade. He is on the missing persons list, but Anya decides that this is the perfect opportunity to go and seek him out. So she enlists the help of his best friend Jamie to go and try and put Ewan back on the map. The problem is that Anya and Jamie absolutely cannot stand each other, so you absolutely know where this is going to go. Next up is going to be a brand new author to me, and this is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have not read a single Kennedy Ryan book before, but I've heard some really great things about them, so I'm really intrigued to see what her writing style is like, what her kind of storytelling is, what kind of metrics that she uses in all of her stories. Like, does she have a kind of a theme that she genuinely runs in a lot? I have spoken a bit about this book with Brie and with Michelle, and they have told me to go into it with a little bit of caution. There are a couple of very difficult topics in this book. There are a couple of things that might be a little bit difficult for some people to read. There are some instances of miscarriage or stillbirth, I believe, in this book. So if that is something that is going to impact you, also maybe go into this with a little bit of caution. But I am going to just give it my best try. I'm going to see how I get along with it and see if Kennedy Ryan is an author for me. This is a Marriage on the Rocks book following Yasmin and Rosiah, who have been married for years, and something comes along to kind of throw their marriage into upheaval, so they decide to take a trial separation, co-parent their 2 children, and just see if they can make any kind of a salvageable civil kind of talk out of this. However, they are brought back together more and more and more when there's stuff like parents' evenings, I'm guessing, or children's birthdays, or things that they have to be together for. And they are starting to remember why it was that they fell in love in the first place. Marriage on the Rocks and second chance romances don't always work for me, but like I said with the trigger warnings, I'm going to go into it with an open mind and I'm going to just see how I get along with it. Next up is Really Good Actually by Monica Heisey, and I am genuinely hoping that this book is really good, actually. I'll see myself out. This book is following Maggie, who is 29. She has got a PhD that she feels is going nowhere, and her marriage has just ended after about 1.5 years. So her whole life is thrown into upheaval, and she decides that she's just going to embrace it. She's going to go out and kind of make a name for herself as a surprisingly young divorcee. And that's something that I love reading. I love reading about characters who have gone through a breakup, who have gone through a really big change in their lives, and watching them kind of rebuild their empire and build their lives back up and find the kind of spark in themselves. That is something that I'm genuinely hoping is going to happen in the pages of this book. I've heard nothing but great reviews about this. I know Ross, who has a blog called Royal Bookworm or the Royal Bookshelf, he absolutely adored this book, and it was actually his review of it that made me pick this up. So hopefully I'm going to have the exact same experience. Next up is another one that I've actually read, and something that is genuinely so close to my heart, and that is Love That Journey for Me by Dr. Emily Garside. This is a kind of a deep dive into the cultural TV phenomenon that is Schitt's Creek. I am obsessed with Schitt's Creek. One of my friends and I kind of tandem watched it for the first time, and we just spent hours decoding it, picking up on things that the other hadn't seen, talking about these great characters and all of these experiences that we wish we had had too. I absolutely adored this book. If you are in any way a fan of Schitt's Creek like I am, this is absolutely the book that you need to read. It goes through every season in meticulous detail. It goes through the characters in meticulous detail. You get to read about Alexis's character growth. You get to read about David kind of letting his inhibitions down, finding love, finding himself, finding a best friend, something that he had never had before. You get to read about the whole family themselves, kind of finding solace in having lost all of their belongings, in having found themselves. And of course, you get to read about this community of Schitt's Creek as a whole. I loved this book. This is such a great companion for when you have just finished the show for the first time and you're in that deep lull of, I feel like a part of my body has been ripped away. I need something that's going to bring it back. This is the perfect book to read. Next up, I am continuing a collection of one of my favourite authors, and that is My Favourite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. I have loved so many of their books before. I first read The Unhoneymooners. It was the first adult contemporary steamy novel that I read, and I was just hooked. This book is about Millie, who is a professor at Santa Barbara. She is permanently single, and her friends see her as just one of the guys. They've never really seen her as like a sexual entity. One night, the university is hosting a kind of a black tie gala, and she and one of her friends end up having the steamiest night of their lives. But when they wake up the next morning, they decide that they would just be better off as platonic friends and don't develop it any further. But Millie decides that this is how she knows she's ready to kick off her dating life. She's going to give online dating a go, but we all know what happens a lot with online dating. But to kind of give herself a different persona, she introduces Catherine, who is going to be her online persona, but she ends up striking up a conversation with the guy that she had slept with at the black tie gala. I really like a kind of a you've got mail trope where characters are speaking to each other, they know each other in real life, but they don't know that it's each other online. I really kind of love that trope, so let's see how I like it being done here. Next up is a book that I was sent by my dad. This is The Wyford Code by Janice Hallett. The Appeal was my absolute standout book from last year. I am still singing its praises from the rafters. I am still pushing it on people, but I'm a little bit worried about The Wyford Code because I've heard it's not quite as good as The Appeal. I do know that she has got another book out, The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels, and that is back up at the heights of The Appeal. So I think I'm just going to push through this one and then we'll get to the Alberton Angels and everything will be G. This is about Edith Twyford, who was a well-respected, super famous, big-time children's author who left a load of kind of code words and secret messages and hidden messages in all of her children's books. And now Sam, who is a detective, is being tasked with trying to find out what all of these hidden messages mean. This book is, like The Appeal, not presented in a straightforward prose, but it is given to us in the form of audio files that are being transcribed as the interviews are being processed. I really enjoy that type of storytelling. It's much more immersive than just reading a straight through prose. It kind of drags you into the story a little bit more because you feel like you are also reading these and hearing these and listening to these and experiencing it for the first time along with the characters in a much more concrete and solid way than you would with just reading a text. So I am so interested to see how this is going to go. The next 4 books all came from the same event. I went into my local shopping centre and there was a branch of Talia in there and I saw a poster that genuinely changed everything. It was a 4 for 3 offer on English language books and I could not help myself. So the first one that I picked up, and the one that I specifically wanted to pick up when I went into the bookshop, was Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. I have heard so many great things about this. This is a kind of a reimagining of Saturday Night Live, where the female male character is like a producer or a writer on the show, and the male main character is the presenter, the musician who has been brought in for that week on the rotating basis that SNL has. I cannot wait to read this. I cannot tell you how interested I am in this. I know that there are so many people who've loved it. And also, I really love Saturday Night Live. I don't watch it through. I've never seen a whole episode, but I've seen a lot of clips of like the sketch shows, of the news report, of the musicians. So I have a feeling that having that little tiny background is just going to bring me into the book a little bit more. Then I decided to go a little bit out of my comfort zone. I picked up the first book in a series, and this is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is in the Dreamland Billionaire series, I think is what it's called. And I think that this book is about building a roller coaster park, or like a theme park, or some kind of an event like that. When I flicked through the pages of this, I found it to be incredibly spicy, and that is definitely something that I'm looking for in books. So I am really intrigued to see just how spicy this is going to be, and if this is going to turn into a series that I need to get the next 2 books in. Next up was Battle Royale by Lucy Parker. I absolutely adore books that have to do with food, with cooking shows, with baking competitions. I've loved books like Love and Other Disasters. I've loved books like the Romantic Escape series by Julie Kaplan, where there are a couple of bakeries or cafes that are included. I absolutely adored Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake. So when I saw that this had something to do with a cooking show, when I saw that this had something to do with cupcakes, it instantly went onto my TBR. This book is about Sylvie and Dominic. Sylvie was a contestant on Operation Cake, and Dominic was the judge who voted her off when her unicorn cake went absolutely skyward. However, they have both caught the attention of the royal family and are both in the running to create a birthday cake or a wedding cake for an upcoming family event. They are continuously at loggerheads with each other, but things might start to heat up outside of the kitchen just as much as they are in it. Finally, I picked up a novella collection by Denise Williams. This is Love and Other Flight Delays. All three of the books in this collection are going to take place in the airport, and I have such a love for airports. It's insane. I absolutely love the kind of in-between place of being in an airport. You're not quite still at home. You're not quite on holiday yet. A sandwich and a bottle of Coke costs you the GDP of a small country. You have absolutely no idea of the concept of time. You could have a pint with breakfast at 5 o'clock in the morning. Airports are this magical place on earth, and I cannot wait to read 3 entire love stories set within the confines of an airport. I am so hype about this book. Those are all of the books that have just recently come onto my TBR. Have you read any of these? Is there one that you think I should start with, or is there one that you think I could probably put to the bottom of the pile? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me the shopping bags emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.